The once vibrant European capital, Kyiv, is living under a blanket curfew right now. The residents have been asked to stay off their streets. Some Russian forces have entered the city, so anyone on the streets will be assumed to be members of the enemy. The evening started with the blaring air raid siren. Overnight, Russian forces pounded the capital with artillery and cruise missiles. In the dead of the night, streets were left empty. This was in contrast to the columns of vehicles choking roads in recent days. Tens of thousands of residents fled west, continue to do so in hope of evading the aggression. Those still in Kyiv took shelter on makeshift beds in an underground car parking. Officials issued warnings to stay away from the windows and take precautions to avoid flying debris and bullets here. Just like their government, people of Kyiv are also full of will to keep fighting.
Все под контролем. Под каким-то до контроля. Все у нас хорошо, все должно быть хорошо. Наши войска справляются.
It's really good atmosphere because it's really very warm people, so close to each other because we help each other.
In the last couple of nights, many people have spent sheltering in basements, underground parking, garages, subway stations. Russia claimed that its assault on Ukraine is aimed only at military targets. Reports claim otherwise. Bridges, schools, residential buildings have also come under attack. Western leaders urged Vladimir Putin to choose the path of diplomacy. But after Kremlin ordered its troops to barge into a neighboring country, diplomacy took a backseat. Of course, Kyiv has maintained that it is always open to dialogue. In a statement, Russian Defense Ministry claims that Ukraine rejected the negotiation process, after which Moscow ordered to broaden its offensive from all directions. In the latest statement by Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said that presidents of Azerbaijan and Turkey have organized talks with Russia.
Ільхам Алієв і президент Ердоган запропонували організувати переговори з Росією. Це можна тільки привітати.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's deputy prime minister has called on the International Red Cross to help repatriate the quote-unquote thousands of Russian soldiers. We would like to inform our viewers that due to rapidly changing ground situation, we will continue to bring you all the latest from this.
We ask the International Red Cross to help us repatriate the bodies of Russian soldiers to Russia. There are thousands of invaders' bodies. This is a humanitarian need. And we ask the invaders to leave Ukrainian territory and go back to Russia. We call upon Russians again to make it that there are less bodies of your sons, of your men, otherwise there will be thousands of them. I say it again, victory will be ours.
Now, Middle East analyst and co-author of The Nuclear Sphinx of Tehran, Mir Javed Anwar, is joining us live from Tel Aviv now. Thank you so much for joining us. Citizens of Ukraine have taken up arms. Russian forces continue to pound the capital. How do you assess the strategic and military capabilities of Ukraine to hold off the forces? As we know, President Joe Biden has also approved more military aid for Ukraine. How do you assess the effectiveness of this?
The victory of this war will not solely be determined by the military power of Russia. The Ukrainians seem to be putting up a fight, but what's very important is that the economic sanctions being imposed against the Russian president. Look, he's in a serious bind now, because if this situation continues for a month, 2 months, 3 months, the diplomatic pressure against his regime is going to be very, very strong. The economic sanctions are going to be backbreaking, and probably the morale of the Russian soldiers fighting on a foreign land on an excuse made up by the president is not going to hold up. So yes, the Russians are going to continue to attack, but I think that Ukrainians are going to put up a resistance because they're fighting on their home turf. But also the rearguard action by the international community with the economic sanctions is going to exact another heavy toll on President Putin. You know, I really wonder if Mr. President Putin thought this thing through. I sometimes have to wonder if he suffers from a God complex because of the way we saw he humiliated his own intelligence minister. I mean, what was he thinking? He's going to invade another country which was not attacking his country because he didn't like the government that he was that it's ruling there, and he thought nothing's going to happen. And what did he think? He's going to invade Ukraine, and then all the sanctions are going to be removed from his regime? You'd have to be living in a parallel universe to think that. And, you know, Russia has very bright analysts and experts. It has one of the world's finest intelligence agencies. I'm sure they told him this, but it seems that he didn't listen. So it brings me back to my original question. Does Mr. Putin suffer from a God complex?
Right. In fact, that brings me to my next question. Russia's military operations started in the east, are swiftly moving in deeper in Ukraine. Now, what do you think of Russia's plan of action? What can we expect in the days to come?
Look, they're going to continue. Mr. Putin is in a serious bind because if he shows any compromise now, then he will be viewed as weak. So he will have to continue, but the more he continues, actually, I think the more the international community are going to be rallied around the presidents. Look, I'll give you an example of how badly this is going for the Russians, again, because of the lack of strategic thinking behind this decision. Mr. President Zelensky did not have high approval ratings before this invasion. According to a New York Times article, you know, majority of Ukrainians before this conflict did not think that he's fit to manage a war. And look at him now. He's an international hero because of this war. Because again, President Putin has made a huge mistake, and President Putin will be going in, but it's like going into quicksand. He's in quicksand now. He has no choice but to keep on moving. The more he moves, the more he sinks. This is not the 19th century anymore. This is the 21st century. And by that I mean, unlike the 19th century when countries want to have spheres of influence, the British took over India as their sphere of influence, and the Russians took over the Kafkaz countries. The big difference today is that the world's economy is interconnected. And if you take such actions, you're more economically.
Right, we seem to be having a problem with that line. We will get Mr. Mir Javedan for soon back online again. Once again, letting our viewers know the Ukrainian capital is under threat. It is under attack. Russian forces have entered the city. Anyone on the streets will assume to be a member of the enemy forces, so residents have been asked to stay off the streets. Now, they pounded the capital with artillery and cruise missiles. Once again, we're being joined by Mr. Mir Javedan. Sir, thank you for joining us again. Now, you say that Russia is going to keep going on, but don't you think that would prove to be counterproductive, not just for Russia, but also in this war? We know that diplomacy has failed to yield any results. The Ukrainian president has said that Azerbaijan and Turkey have now organized talks with Russia. What can we expect on that front?
Look, it really remains to be seen whether President Putin is willing to make compromises. You know, as I said before, he's in quicksand. It's like somebody who's walked into quicksand. The more he moves, the more he's going to sink. And I don't know if your viewers heard me, but Angela Merkel said President Putin is a leader of a 21st century country, but he thinks like a 19th century leader. You know, in the old days, he wants to have spheres of influence. This is something that belongs to 3 centuries ago, when Britain took over India and the Russians took over Kafkaz in order to have spheres of influence. There's a big difference between the 19th century and the 21st century, and that is that the world's economy is interconnected. Russia's economy is far more vulnerable now. He's going to be punished severely economically for what he has done. He has not covered his tracks economically. Russia is very, very exposed on the economic front. But I think, you know, right now for him to show any compromise is going to cost him at home in front of a very reluctant Russian population against whose wishes he seems to have launched this war. So I'm not very hopeful that we're going to see compromise from the Russians in the future. There will be talks, but I'm not sure Mr. Putin is ready to make compromises.
Right. Mr. Javedan, thank you so much for joining us with all your insights on this. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.